joining us for this piece of SUNY Oswego's Imagine 2022 program. This interview is part of our final week of programming for Imagine 2022, which is entitled Imagine Success. My name is Lethe White, and I'm a current junior at SUNY Oswego. I'm currently one of the alumni programming interns for the Alumni and Development Office. I'm a tour guide on campus. I interned for the National Esports Collegiate Conference as a game manager. And today I'm joined by SUNY Oswego alumni Aunt DeMario, class of 2012. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for joining us, Aunt.
I'm so grateful to be here. You're amazing. I appreciate your time, and it makes me so happy to come back and speak with a school that's so dear and near to my heart. I'm grateful to be here.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. So please introduce yourself and tell us about your current role and what energizes you most about your work.
Yeah, so my name is Ant. I'm a speaker, and I'm a certified brain health strategist. And the reason I share that is because I really was passionate about finding a niche area that I could study. I call it me search, to learn it, to live it, to grow it, and to give it. And the brain was just so fascinating to me. So I really put myself through almost probably 6 years now of self-education and just knowing everything that I could. So when I was speaking, I could create metaphors and analogies and really share things in a relatable way to help create impact, which I'm after. For me currently, I have a few things. I love doing what I'm passionate about and helping others in that process, serving something bigger than me. I just think we have to do our part. So currently I am a senior learning and training architect for Corporate Wayfair, if you've heard of them. Extraordinary company. It's been such a privilege. And in parallel, I'm a facilitator and global speaker for a beautiful mental health app called Better Up. I'm a partner for them, and that's been an extraordinary experience as well. And then, of course, I have when I'm wearing my shirt, my hat, I have my personal mission: be you. The world needs your light, and I just donate talks, raising awareness on mental health, and capturing funds to fuel mental health resources in that process for the local Syracuse area.
No, I noticed the hat and the shirt, and honestly, I love that for you. What really motivated you to start that up?
Yeah. So, how much time do you have? No, for me, I was incredibly creative, especially when I was at Oswego. I was really passionate about using words to really express myself. And even before that, I had a home and careers teacher, and she looked at me one time. She said, "Aunt, like, I could tell that your mind is wandering, and that doesn't mean you're lost. That's amazing. Like, you're exploring your creativity, your imagination." And she shared with me this quote. It was, "Be original or die a copy." And it really struck me in that moment. And she said, "Just lean into your authenticity and follow your curiosity." And it didn't like radically change my life in that moment. There was so many things that happened, but throughout the high school, and then when I got to college and SUNY Oswego, I just really tried to lean in and really show up vulnerably. And I felt like that helped me connect to people in a different way, and I really enjoyed that. And what I think is so beautiful is when we allow ourselves to be seen, we help others be seen too in that process. So I started to really find my voice and share this "be you, the world needs your light" message, because I was navigating a lot of mental health things. I was exploring, all these things that I wasn't aware of at that time, like depression and anxiety, and I didn't talk about it. I fell into the stigma. So it became something inside of me just awoke in a moment, just saying, "Hey, there are other people that feel this way, and how can you use your story? Not that mine's better than anybody else's, but how can I use my story in a relatable way to tell a story that creates a message that empowers people to talk?" So I did that, and I started to kind of gain some steam, and it just kind of created its own thing. And it's been such a privilege to be able to be in rooms, to share story, to invite conversation that's honest and open. And I'm just so grateful that I have the privilege to be in those rooms and connect at that level.
Yeah, that's really beautiful to hear, and honestly inspiring. Many college students like me, we are struggling with mental health, especially during the pandemic. So it's really inspiring to hear that someone like us has turned like such a beautiful thought into an amazing project. So that's really awesome, and I'm glad you're doing that work. So how would you define success, and what are sort of tangible ways that students and recent grads can set themselves up for success?
Yeah. So, I always think there's two types of resilience. There's what you bring right to that experience, and then what happens when you're stretching through that experience. And sometimes those of you that are watching, it's uncomfy, and that's where the growth lies. And that progress actually makes us feel alive. So we can kind of lean into that. There's this beautiful philosopher, I'm blanking on the name. He said something like the limits of the world of our world are the limits of our language. What's quite interesting for me is I never really looked at the word success or asked myself that type of question. Early on, I made a decision to chase my passions and really utilize my passions to impact people. And what I found in that process, I didn't really know it then, is that I was very fulfilled. I'm still very fulfilled. And I never left myself crestfallen at the end of something. I've been in so many rooms training people, really extraordinary people that are way more successful than me, that are unhappy. And what it makes me think about is, how do we even look at this word success and maybe take a few steps back? It's like, what makes you feel alive? What do you think the world needs as far as impact? How to use your gifts, your unique essence and your passions to serve a mission or others or a community or something that's really bigger than you. And I believe if you step into that, you'll feel more alive and energized about your work and your career and your day to day than maybe chasing this word, and then success will follow that, right? So,
Yeah.
and by the way, I like to, if it's okay, I want to unpack this a little in a sense, because what I think is, first, if we expand our vocabulary, we transform our emotional experience, right? The more ways
Mhm.
we can articulate how we're feeling, the more powerful we are in our essence. But I see a lot of things on social media now, like, hey, drop corporate America, or don't do this, like start your own thing. Well, that's not for everybody. Like, I love the work that I do for the corporate companies that I work with. Like, I just think you can fall in love with the activities, and thus you're impacting in your own unique way. So I just wanted to share that, because I see so much of that on social media. But to me, it's just like, it's really one word. It's freedom. What makes you feel free in the things that you're doing, and how do you fall madly in love with the process and drop expectation? And I think your world will transform in that moment for sure.
No, I totally agree. I think that a lot of college students, especially right now more than ever, experience a lot of pressure and self-doubt and really imposter syndrome from the stigma of success and how it's defined in our culture versus like what it really means to them. So I think everything that you've said is really great and something that can be used to help especially struggling college students right now really start to love the work that they produce and love who
Yeah,
they are and how they can bring that to a table. Um,
I love that.
so, can you share a time that you had a major setback or were close to giving up and how you worked to overcome it and keep pushing forward?
Yeah, and first, your smile makes me smile. So I really appreciate your presence. And thinking about what you just said too, there's this, I think it's the Latin phrase, amore fati, the love of one's life, right?
Yeah,
And that acceptance is just gorgeous. So thank you for that.
of course.
And yeah, I mean, I've tasted the gravel over and over again. Even in college, I began as a personality. I was fell in love with the radio, and then I
Mhm.
got to a tech company, and I didn't walk into the room or the college classroom, or I didn't walk into the first big tech company, or even into my first when I was picked up as a speaker and traveled. I never walked in the room the smartest. But what I will say is I was willing to learn the most. I read and I read and I read, and I never settle for less than I deserve. And I encourage any of you that are listening, that the moment you set a standard for yourself to say, you know what, I'm not going to settle for less than I deserve. It's not going to be easy. I will fail. But what can I take that's beautiful out of that setback and look at it in a way that says, that's happening for me, not to me. And how can I grow and give from that experience? And that's really powerful. I will talk about, I remember one time vividly when I started to tell the BU message, and during that whole process, which was really, really, I want to say the word powerful, because it struck me like a lightning bolt when it happened. I actually lost one of my dear best friends during that process where I was sharing this story. That's what brought me to the foundation that I kind of collaborate in a way with now, and share that BU message. But I remember early on, I was just so adamant about like learning how to create imagery, to how to really dance in the moment. Like I was not only holding on to that sand castle to stay structured, but really moving my way through the beach and enjoying the sunset too, in a way. And I remember my first couple talks at that time, I wasn't financially, successful. I was just chasing my
Yeah.
passions. And I was sitting outside this building. It's in Syracuse, and I'm about to go into this talk and tell this story. I'm literally crying uncontrollably because I'm late on my rent. It was just after college. I had like no food in my place. I didn't know what I was really doing, but I loved it. But yet I was just like kind of lost in the moment. Like, when is it gonna change? And I remember just kind of picking myself up, going through it, and just feeling the electricity in my blood after just doing what I loved in that room. And then coming back, and my mom, actually, she went in my apartment. My mom's a rock star. I think we are only as great as the people we surround ourselves, and how lucky are we to have people in our lives like our mothers, our fathers, our step parents, right?
Mm.
And she had notes all over the place. She said, "Aunt, I paid your rent for the next 2 months." She filled my fridge and my cupboards, and she said, "Don't let up, right? Keep chasing, because who you become in that process is what it's all about." And I'll never forget that moment. And it was a setback, but also something that's propelled me for sure.
No, I think that's really beautiful. I know, especially in the age of social media where everyone's like, oh, you can do this or you can do that. You can have a podcast or start a YouTube channel or whatever. People really struggle doing that without like a formula, right? So they want to be like, I love this YouTuber. How did they do it? And people are so uncomfortable with, making their own space in a room, like belonging in a room without following a formula and being their genuine self. So I think your story really shows that it is possible that you can totally be who you are genuinely, make an impact without having to sacrifice who you are as a person.
Yeah, and do what you love. Like, I've had the privilege to do that because I truly believe it's when you add enough value, right? And keep adding more value than anybody else in what specifics you're after, you'll get a seat at the table, right? You will be heard. If you are visible enough to be seen, you're visible enough to be heard. And when you're heard, you could be touched. And when we're touched, we can also impact. And I think, and I love what you said there too, because I really look at it as like an art and science. Yeah, there's a science, and we could spend time with saying, first the vision has to be compelling, of course. You got to get the strategy, model somebody that's already done it, take action, and I always say have grace for yourself too. And grace isn't a religious thing unless you want to make it. Grace isn't one of my ex-girlfriends, even though it could be. But grace for this purpose is fierce trust, just leaning in heroically. And then that's a science, right? You just like health, you break rules, you feel dis-ease in the body. But there's the art, and the art, and I'm sure you might be familiar, but there's beautiful Japanese philosophies like ikigai and different things, kintsugi, and just things like that. But the art is at the core essence is we grow to give. Progress makes us feel alive. So if we're growing and we're giving in that process, right, and showing up, like you said, authentically and genuinely, boom, the science of it becomes easier, and it really follows suit.
Yeah, no, of course. And thank you so much for sharing that because I think that is really wise, especially more now than ever to hear. So, whether they are current students or recent graduates, many listening right now may be about to embark on a new semester at SUNY Oswego or maybe even a new career path. What tips do you have on how these listeners may be able to stay positive and focused on their goals moving forward, whatever they may be?
Yeah, I would say, what's really powerful is the brain is ineffably complex. I mean, it's the densest expression of who we are, what makes us us, our hopes, our dreams, and everything in that 3 pound thinking flesh. That it's exquisite pearl. And what I would like to really land in everyone's heart is that, emotions at the core essence don't happen to you, they're made by you. We're not at mercy of some, the circuits buried in our ancient brain. Neuroscience proves it now. And some of the best in the world are publishing on this. And emotions are essentially, what the experiences mean to you in an embodied way. And I'll give you a quick little example. And maybe you could do this with me if it's okay, and they could do it too. Do you know that song, We Will Rock You? We Will
Yeah.
Rock You. Okay, so think about the song, Watch My Hands.
Yeah.
And can you hear the beat, right?
Yeah.
So this thing doesn't react, it predicts. So what I invite students to think about is cultivating. So if we understand that our brain is just taking the external sense data, what's happening in that environment, from what's past happened to us in experiences, to essentially asking us, like, in the moment, what does our body need to maintain well-being? That's one piece. And then understanding that meaning really helps us shape that emotional experience. um, I think when I think of positivity, I think of gratitude. I think I explore through a grateful lens. I'm very optimistic by nature, but anchoring gratitude, you bathe in happiness. So when I think about this, and three quick things that I could share is that when you understand that you can cultivate that experience, and the more you do it, what we rehearse, we become, is really truly a breakthrough. So moment to moment, consciously or unconsciously, we're making these three decisions. So if you think about, what you're going to focus on, you're going to end up feeling that. You're focusing on, the test is coming up. I got all these papers I got to do, and you're going to feel a certain way. Or like, wow, I'm going to prepare for this test. I'm going to do what I need to do and prep, stay hungry, the preparation to control that. Focus is power. And then the second decision is meaning again. And meaning creates emotion. Emotion drives our lives. So if you think about the butterflies in your stomach, could be nervousness or excitement before that test. And there's some beautiful research on this at universities out of Northeastern, that you in that moment get to choose, right, what those butterflies mean and help them fly in formation. And then the last thing is what are you going to do, right? So we have so many different ways that we can impact our emotional experiences. And just really quick, one thing I will say, of course, my brand, my message is, amongst all the other things, if you feel comfortable, I encourage each of you to talk. Therapy is cool, counselor, group sessions, friends, and then there's some other things. If people want to follow up with me after, I can definitely share. But I think that basic understanding is powerful. And the last thing I will share is this: reach out to people, ask for informational sessions, model them, get curious, connect, and just keep adding value. And I truly believe that that is the antidote for sure.
No, for sure. SUNY Oswego offers 3 counseling, and it's always something that I advertise when I give
Mhm.
tours, because not only do we offer free counseling and free group sessions, but we do a free psychiatry program through SUNY Upstate. And I know that I've been doing it since I came here, and it's helped my college experience so much. And that's something I love to brag about to prospective, students and parents, is that Oswego actually cares about your mental health. Like, they bring in therapy dogs. We have mental health like conferences. It's so awesome that how much Oswego actually cares. And that's something I try really putting out there, because a lot
Yeah.
of college students think they just want our money, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's something that I think makes our college really unique.
That's so powerful. And first, I want to just acknowledge you for sharing that. I honor you. And just one quick thing, because you asked me this question. I'm sorry I missed it. You said something around confidence. I
Yeah.
would just invite people to think about these three promises. Our self promises equal our self confidence. We break our promises, we start to lose confidence. In every moment, if you can, I encourage each of you to see it as it is, see it brighter, and then see it through. And those three promises, I promise, will definitely impact your life.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your time and knowledge with our Laker family. And thanks to everyone who tuned in and participated in our Imagine 2022 program. I don't know about you, but I'm walking away from this session with a lot of good knowledge and some newfound inspiration. So I thank you, Ant, for that. We
Yeah.
hope that you'll continue to keep an eye out for more Imagine 2022 programming during this final week. And we'll wishing you all a happy, healthy, and successful 2022. Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah. And thank you for being you. You're amazing. I appreciate your time and energy. I really do.